Hello there, and welcome to my presentation today. Today I will be discussing and teaching you about the IEP team members and their roles that they play on that team. My name is Rebecca Hayden, and I'm a teacher here at Roseau Elementary. I am presenting to you today on behalf of a college course I'm taking through Southwest Minnesota State University. IEP stands for an Individualized Education Plan. As part of an IEP, you have a team or a group who serve on the IEP. We call them the team members. By law, the team must consist of specific team members. There are at least a minimum of 5 members and oftentimes many more. The 5 minimum requirements include the parents of the child we are meeting on. The parents could also be foster parents if the child is in foster care, or it could be grandparents if they're serving as the guardians of the child. We also must have a general education teacher, a special education teacher, a representative from the school district, and someone who can interpret the evaluation results. Each team member has a different role and experience that they bring to the team. It's important that each team member respects each other and understands we are there together to help support a student in developing their educational needs. It is also important to know that one person can fill more than one role on the team if they are qualified and licensed in both areas. An example of this is that the school rep is the special ed director. They could also be the person who interprets the results for the group. It could also be an admin or a special ed teacher that may have a license in another area. Other times you may see a school psychologist as the person who can interpret the results, and they may also bring some knowledge or expertise about the child in any assessments that they did. Again, we already discussed the 5 minimum people that must be included on the team for an IEP. There can be, as we mentioned, more than 5. To review again, it must include the child's parents, at least one of the child's special education teacher. Now, it could be multiple special ed teachers, such as a learning disability teacher and an emotional and behavioral disturbed teacher, also known as EBD. It could be a teacher who works with students with autism. Whatever the needs are of the child, you must have at least one of those licensed teachers at the meeting. They all may be invited, but you must have at least one of them in the licensed area that you are looking at. You must have at least one of the child's regular education teacher. This could be a teacher from the past, it could be their current teacher, or a teacher coming up. It just depends on the time of the evaluation. If the student is in high school, all of their teachers should be invited to this meeting. At minimum, we must have one of the regular education teachers at the meeting. We must have a representative of the school system, possibly somebody from the admin team. You could have a principal, you could have an assistant principal, a dean of students, director of special education, or a superintendent. You must have an individual who can interpret the evaluation results. You may have representatives from other agencies who may be paying or providing transitional services. The student themselves could be at the meeting if appropriate, and other individuals who have knowledge or special expertise about the child. That may include somebody like a social worker. Also, I want to make note, you may have other team members at the meeting, such as an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, a DAPE teacher, developmentally and appropriate physical education. You could have a music therapist, speech and language pathologist, all of those people who may be a part of the evaluation process. And then if they showed a need, they would also be included in that team. Maybe there was an evaluation done on a child and they wanted to see if occupational therapy would be a benefit to the student. That therapist would be involved in the evaluation process, but if the evaluation shows there's not a need for that service, then that specific person would not continue on the team if there's not a need for that service. If the child qualifies for that service, then that therapist would become a part of the team. So each person on the IEP team has a role and a responsibility. The parents. Parents play a crucial role as essential members of an IEP team. With their knowledge and understanding of their child, parents can provide valuable insight into the child's strengths, their needs, and preferences for improving their education. They are able to share how their child may learn best, their interests in school and out of school, and other special aspects of their child that only a parent would know. They have the ability to share their own recommendations that may best support their child. One piece of advice for any parents who may be a part of a team is prior to a meeting, write down so you're able to share some of your concerns at the meeting so you will not forget them. You could bring data that supports your points or concerns. You can include your child's papers from their classroom, report cards, data, or outside evaluation information about your child. Most of that information, if it's academic based, will already be a part of the evaluation process as the general ed teacher works with the special ed teacher to gather all that data. But once in a while, there are some outside evaluations that would pertain and be valuable information to share. So I would encourage any parents to, again, write down ideas or thoughts, concerns, happy thoughts, so you're able to share them at the meeting. Parents could be a biological parent. If parents are divorced, both parents need to be invited and a part of the team. It could be parents can include foster parents. If children are in foster care, both the biological parent is invited along with the foster parents. Could be legal guardians or an individual who acts in place of a parent. The role and the responsibility of the special education teacher. Again, we have different categories that children qualify for special education under. So part of the team is an educator with knowledge about the disability and its impact on the student's developmental and educational progress. On the slide, you would see some of the different categories that students can qualify under. The special education teacher, some of their responsibilities include that they will adapt the standard curriculum to better meet the child's learning needs and styles. They will identify necessary support tools and services for the child to thrive in both the typical classroom setting and beyond, such as a resource room. The special education teacher will assessment methods to accurately assess the child's knowledge and skills. And they will provide personalized teaching strategies to cater to the specific needs of each student. Once a child has been evaluated and there shows to be a need for that child in special education, the special education teacher kind of becomes the driving force, the main person to carry out the educational needs and to support that child on a day-to-day basis. The special education teacher will work very closely with the general education teacher or any other special education teachers who are a part of the team. When it comes time to gather progress reports on the child and their IEP goals, that would fall under the responsibility of the special education teacher. Anytime meetings need to be set up, that also goes through the special education teacher. Here are a few other things the special education teacher is responsible for. It is crucial to not only assist in drafting and writing the IEP, but to also carry out those responsibilities. We briefly just talked about this a few minutes ago. Some of the key responsibilities may include collaborating with students in a specialized setting, such as a resource room or special classes designed for those receiving special education services. The special ed teacher may co-teach alongside the regular education teacher to enhance the learning experience. And they must also work together with other school personnel, especially the regular education teacher, to offer important insight on meeting the students' individual needs. As we move on, the next team member we are going to talk about is the regular education teacher. The regular education teacher plays a vital role in the process of a student on an IEP. Again, when students qualify for special education services, the needs that they have and the supports that will be required can really vary from student to student. So the general education teacher, they are of course the first and the primary teacher who most likely referred the child onto a child study team. So they should have a really good understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of the child. Okay, they might have some insight and ideas on what areas of concern they have for the child and which ones they want to make sure to address with the team. A general education teacher, again, could be somebody who is currently their teacher. They may also ask for insight or information from a previous teacher or a teacher in the upcoming grade. For example, maybe it is late April and the child is just ending second grade or close to ending second grade. When they go to write an IEP, they would probably include the current teacher, and they could also invite the teacher for the upcoming school year in third grade. Why would we do that? We would do that to help make sure we have everything set up and in place to best support the child. An example would be in third grade, you start having a little bit more assessments or state testing. So the teachers in third grade could bring some insight to make sure those things don't get missed while they're writing the IEP, since they will be moving on to third grade. And when you write an IEP, it is generally set up for 1 calendar year. And then you would have a meeting again to kind of evaluate, to analyze where we're at and what needs to be adjusted. So it's very helpful to have information from the general education teacher about the expectations coming up. Another person who is a part of the team is a representative from the school. As mentioned before, this could be a variety of people. It could be a special ed director if your district has one of those. It could be a principal, an assistant principal, dean of students, or even a superintendent. There must be one of these representatives from the school at the meeting. Without one of these people, the meeting should not happen. Their role is to help and support during the meeting. They could possibly open and begin the meeting by welcoming people. Maybe towards the end of the meeting, they could ask if there's any other questions or concerns that the family or the teachers have that they would like to address. It is also their responsibility to ensure that things are set into place. An example would be that maybe you have a child with limited communication skills. And part of the IEP includes that the child will receive a communication device from the school. The school rep would be that person who helps organize, collaborates, and make sure that they get the equipment that they need for this student. Another example would be that maybe you have a child that is deaf and hard of hearing. Now, you would most likely on your team also have a deaf and hard of hearing teacher, along with if they have academic needs or behavioral needs, other things. But again, that school rep is going to make sure that any communication devices, interpreters, or communication schedules are in place and they're ready to help and support. Another member of the team is an individual who can interpret the results. Oftentimes, this could be a school psychologist, or it could also be filled by that school rep, such as a special ed director. It is very important that this member of the team is able to articulate and communicate the results in parent-friendly language. Sometimes when we have information regarding an individualized education plan, there gets to be a lot of acronyms and terms. And we have to always remember that the parents, the families of our children, do not understand all that lingo. And so even though we need to communicate and address all the areas, it's also important to pause and acknowledge who the parent is, and do they need us to break it down even more so they can understand the results. So their responsibility is to explain what the child's test scores mean. They might share which tests were completed during the evaluation process, and then any standard deviations or how the child's scores fall onto a map compared to their peers and compared to what the child can do based off their, per se, IQ or expectation. These scores show how well the child is doing in school and where they may need some help in the upcoming future. Again, we want this team member to discuss how these test results may impact the school structure and how to help set up the child's day for success. Also at the team meeting could be service providers. There can be various supports in place based on the student's needs or concerns. There can be different professions who may be involved in creating the plan, such as an occupational therapist or a physical therapist. It could be an adaptive phy-ed teacher, a psychologist, or speech and language pathologist. These service providers also share valuable information about the assessments, the student needs in the area, and writing goals along with the data. All right. Moving along, another person who can be invited to the IEP meeting and be a part of the team is the student themselves. If the student is over the age of 14, they must be invited to attend the meeting. They are not required to attend. Again, this may vary in different circumstances, just depending on each situation. But once a child is 14, they can be an official member of the IEP team who voices their opinions regarding the services and any goals that they have in their IEP. Again, this is something that I don't see very often, but it's important to be aware in case the family does feel like their child should be a team member. Other people who may be invited or may be a part of the team are individuals who have knowledge or special expertise about the child. This could be a person such as an advocate for a special needs family. Myself, I am a part of a community called the Williams Syndrome family, and I know there are many families when they first start out their journey of having an IEP written that they do not feel as knowledgeable as they need to be to have everything in place. So they get an advocate to come to the meetings with them, somebody who has more information and expertise in this. I've also seen an advocate at meetings whereas the family may feel that they want more supports in place for their child, whereas the school or the special ed teacher does not feel like they need that much support. And so an advocate is sometimes somebody who comes in and works alongside the team, and they kind of have that outside lens. They don't know the child as well as the family or the school, but given the information collected from the assessment or the evaluation, they can help provide some guidance. Listed are some other people that may be a member of the IEP team. It could be a foster family. It could be a county representative. Again, if the child is in foster care, that could also connect to some community social workers. There have been times where a school nurse or somebody in the medical field is available and is a part of the team if the child has some health and medical needs and concerns as well. The overall goal of the team is to work together to develop and write the individualized education plan for the student. The team is also responsible for working together to carry out these services and make sure everything is happening. That is the reason you have a team with so many different people on the team, is to also help keep everybody accountable, moving forward, again, for the best interest of the student. Here's an example of a handout that a special ed teacher could create for the family. They could have a little graphic and have a picture with the name and the title of each person on that IEP team. You could also add in phone numbers or email addresses so the families have all of the information located in one place, so if they need to reach out. This was a very helpful tool that I created along with my daughter's IFSP team when we were first getting started. So we had everybody's phone numbers easily accessible, whether we had to, cancel a session the last minute because a child was sick or a daycare was closed, whatever the need is, we had all the information right there. On the next slide, we have some more resources that can be very useful about the team. I find it beneficial to have a student information overview sheet. I like to hand one of these out to each member at the IEP meeting so they can take notes along as we go about strengths and weaknesses. There's some open boxes about comments Maybe they have thoughts and ideas throughout the meeting and they do not want to interrupt another service provider or the parents, so they have room to do all that information there. Also important just to be aware of the accommodations for an IEP. Again, this meeting is more about the team, but I just like that little graphic in there to keep everybody also aware of those things as we work together for the student. Here I have a graphic organizer that is available. If somebody is following along with this presentation, they would be able to write down the different team members and their responsibilities. You could also use this little graphic organizer during an IEP team meeting. You could have each service provider share their update and their progress notes on a student, and then they can write each little recap in each box. This is another resource I found on Teachers Pay Teachers from Jessica the Psych. And again, it talks about the team members. It gives information about what they do, their name, phone number, email address. So I think this would be another really nice resource to share with everybody on the team, including the parents or the family, just again, so if they have a question on who does what or who they need to reach out to about something, they have all that information in one place. Here is another resource option. This talks about who are all the people, why are they here, and what do they all do. I think this would be a nice graphic to share with parents, again, maybe in the beginning of the process or during the process. But I also am aware and understand that when that parent walks into an IEP meeting or a planning meeting for the first time, it can be very overwhelming. If they walk into a group or a room with 8 people sitting around the table, it can be very intimidating. So I think this resource would be very beneficial to share with the family prior to them walking into the meeting, so they have an understanding who is there, who will be there, and why they're all going to be there. Again, you could change out the people who would be at the meeting based on the student needs and their team members. All right, after all of that, I do have a quiz available based off of this presentation. We have 5 questions, and I will pass them out so you have them available. I would like you to complete the quiz in the next 5 to 10 minutes and then turn them in. Here's an overview of the multiple choice questions. We have the quiz answer, and we also have resources that I use to create this presentation.